So what we're going to do in this one is we're going to start with the assignments. And so this is basically going to be like our API, where users will be able to create assignments, and those users will have to be teachers. They'll create the assignments, and then we can see them here in the home view, which will list all those assignments out. So if you'd like to follow along with this tutorial, you can just go to GitHub and navigate to our Teach Me Django repository. So here it is, Teach Me Django. And then you can just follow to these commits here to see which commit you'd like to continue from. We'll also add a description of these commits inside the project README file to help point out which commits were the starting code for each tutorial. And so once you've got all the code set up and you're ready to go, then let's get started. So let's head over here, and I'm going to stop the server and just call python manage.py start app, and we'll call it API. And inside API we can go to the models to get started with this. And so we're going to create 3 models. We're going to create an assignment. And so now let's think about the kinds of models that we're going to create. We've already mentioned that we're going to create an assignment, so let's just add assignment here. And if we think about the fields on an assignment, we could give it a title. And this would just be like the title of the assignment, so like midterm exam or something like that. And then there would have to be a teacher that's assigned to that title, because that's the person that actually created the assignment. And we would also have to reference the questions on each assignment. However, I'm not going to do it as a many-to-many field of questions on the assignment. Instead, what I'm going to do is create a question model, and each question is going to have its question, which will be kind of like the title of the question. There will then be choices, so these will be the actual answer choices to the question, and then we'll also have to assign which of those is the actual answer. And we could do this in quite a number of ways. We could just make it a character field, or we could make it a select field where the choices are equal to the choices of the question, but I think the character field is just the simplest way to do it. And then we also have the assignment, and this is the assignment object that we created here. So this will be a foreign key, and this will allow us to then assign the question to each assignment. We'll then also give each question an order, and this is so that we can actually order them on the assignment. And the reason why we're creating that instead of using the ID is because if you use the question ID, we could have, for example, question 12 and 13 on assignment 2, and we want to reference those questions in terms of their ID relevant to the assignment. So meaning question 12 would actually be question 1 on assignment 2, or whichever assignment it is. So that way, by creating an order, which would just be an integer field, we can assign the order of each question on the assignment. And then lastly, we have these choices here, and what I'm going to do is actually make this a many-to-many field with a choice object. And this will actually also be the answer field as well, where this will be a foreign key. And in the choice model, we're simply just going to have the title. So basically this just means that we'll create a choice and then assign those choices to each question. And so those are the basic models. And what we're also going to create is a graded assignment. Now the graded assignment is kind of like an in-between model between the assignment and the student. And the reason for this is we could just add a field here which would be like graded, and this could be like a Boolean field. So basically meaning that we set it to false when it's initially created, and then we set it to true when it's been graded. But I think a better approach to this would be creating a graded assignment model. So we say graded assignment, and these fields are simply just going to be the student who actually completed the assignment. We're then going to have the assignment that was completed, so a foreign key on that assignment, and then we'll have the grade. And so that way, when a user actually completes the assignment, it will create a completely new instance that relates entirely just to the fact that it was graded. And I think that's a much better way of managing it. Let's create these models. We'll get started with the assignment. So we'll say class assignment, and it comes from models.model. We'll say that the title is a character field, and we'll just set the max length to be 50. And we'll say that the teacher is a foreign key on the user model, and that means we need to import the user. So we'll say from the users.models import user, and then we just need to specify the onDelete, which will be models.cascade, and then we'll just define the string method here and say this is self, and then just say return self.title, and we can delete those nodes there. Then we have the graded assignment, so we'll say class graded assignment, which comes from models.model. We'll say that the student is a foreign key on the user as well, and we'll also say onDelete equals to models.cascade. We'll say that the assignment equals to a foreign key with the assignment, and we'll say onDelete equals to models.setNull, and we'll say that blank and null are true. And the reason for that is just because if the assignment was deleted, maybe you actually do want to keep record of previous assignments that were completed. So that way you can just say set null, and basically the assignment will just be null. Of course, you could just make this models.cascade if you want to be simple, and then we'll have grade equals to models.float field so that we can handle decimals, and then we'll just say define string, which takes in self, and we'll just say return the self.student.username. So that's the graded assignment. We then have the question and the choice, and I'm actually going to bring the choice above here so that we can reference it inside the question model. So we'll say class choice from models.model, and we'll just give it a title, which is a character field, and just say the maximum length equals to 50, and then define string just like this one. And then we have the question model, so we'll say class question, which comes from models.model. We'll then say that the question equals to models.character field, and this could be like max length of 200. Remember, this is the actual question that they're asking. Then you have the choices, and this is going to be a many to many field with the choice model that we just created up here. We'll then have the answer, which is going to be a foreign key with the choice, and we'll say that onDelete equals to models.cascade, and we're going to have to pass in the related name because we're referencing the choice twice. So we'll say that the related name is the answer. We'll then say that the assignment that this question belongs to is a foreign key to the assignment model, and we'll set onDelete equal to models.cascade. We'll then create the order, which is an integer field, and actually we could make that a small integer field because it's not going to get too large. And then we can add the define string method, and we'll just say return self.question, and there we go. So you can delete that. And now we have our models: assignment, graded assignment, choice, and question. And we can go ahead and make those migrations after we add the API into our installed apps. So we'll just add it here, and there we go. So we'll just bring up the terminal here, and we'll say manage.py make migrations, and there we have the models created. And now we can say manage.py migrate. There we go, and let's run the server now. And I'm just going to bring that down. And now inside the API, what I'm going to do is create two folders. The one folder is going to handle the URLs for the assignment view set, and then the second folder is going to handle the URLs for the graded assignment view set. So we'll just create assignments, and then we'll also create the graded assignments, and then inside each one we'll just create a urls.py, and there we go. And so now we can go to our home, and we'll go to the URLs here, and then we'll add a path, and we'll say path to assignments, which will be the API URL to the assignments view set, and we'll just say include api.assignments.urls, and we'll do the same sort of thing for graded assignments like that, and this will be api.gradedassignments.urls, and we can close that and actually come inside these URLs here. And what we want to do is actually the same thing as what we did in the users app. So let's go back to users and down to the URLs, and I'm actually just going to copy all of that, and we'll go all the way back into the assignments URLs. So we're importing the router, the default router, and then we're going to import the view set. So we don't have that. we create the default router, and then we register it using that view set, which again we haven't created yet, and then we assign it to those URLs. So we have all of that, and we can do the same thing for the graded assignment URLs. And so we don't need to focus on the graded assignments for now, but it's just so that we can get that set up for the time being, and we can then work inside the assignments URLs. So we're going to need to work on the assignment view set now. So let's go here into the API views, and we're just going to create a class assignment view set. And actually we can use the same thing as what we did in the users model. So let's actually copy everything here, and then we'll paste this there, and we don't need the render shortcut. And in this case we're importing the assignment model, and we're going to need to create a serializer file with an assignment serializer. So let's do that. So we'll just create serializers.py just for the time being, and then we'll call this the assignment view set, which uses the assignment serializer, and the query set is the assignment objects.all. And now we can just handle the serializer. So we'll need to import the REST framework serializers. So we'll say from REST framework import the serializers, and then we'll create a class assignment serializer, which inherits from serializers.model serializer, and that means that we need our model as well. So there's that. And then here we can just specify the class meta, where the model is the assignment, and then the fields will just say equals to _all. So basically just pass in all the fields of the assignment, and everything is working. So let's go actually to the local host to /assignments, and we see that we get the default Django REST framework list view. And let's head into the admin, and we can actually add those models into the admin as well. So we'll say from.models import the choice, question, assignment, and graded assignment, and then we'll just say admin.site.register each of these, and there we go. Now let's come back and refresh this. There we go. Let's go to the assignments, and let's just create one here. We'll say the assignment is a test assignment, and the teacher is, let's say, admin. We'll click save, and if we come back here and refresh this, then we aren't getting it come through just yet. And actually in the URLs is where we needed to bring in our view set. So we've got the assignment view set now, and we can put that in our router, and the base name is assignments. And we're actually getting an error here saying there's no module named API assignments views, and that's actually because this comes from api.views. So if we come back and reload this, now we can see our assignments being loaded there. Cool. So now we can go to the front end and actually pull those assignments into a list view to display here. So let's just close all of this stuff for the time being, and we'll go into the front end, into source containers, and we're going to create our assignment list.js, and we'll say import React from React, and we're actually going to need to go to and-d now. So let's go to and-d, and we want to find the list, which is here under data display, and this first one here is good enough. So we'll just copy the code, and we'll come in here and paste it, and we don't need that mounting there. And actually all we want is the large size, so we'll delete everything else, and then we'll just create a class called assignment list, which we'll say extends from react.pureComponent, and then say render and return, and we're going to return everything here, and just paste that in there. And then we'll say export the default as the assignment list, and then this assignment list we want to bring into our router. So let's go to the roots here, and we'll say import the assignment list from containers assignment list, and we're just going to add another root on the end of this, and we can actually just copy one of these, and we'll just paste it here, and it's not going to go to any specific path except just /, and we can just add the component as the assignment list. And if we come back, now we can see it displaying there. And of course this is dummy data for now, so what we want to do is actually get that data and then display it here. So we're going to use React Redux to handle that for us. So let's go into the store, into actions, and we'll create a new file which we'll call assignments.js. And this is very similar to what we're already doing here with these actions. So we're going to basically need everything from there and just paste it. So we've got auth fail, auth success, and auth start, but of course we'll rename those. So let's call this first one the get assignment list start, and I'll just copy that bit there, and that will be get assignment list success and get assignment list fail. And we're going to need to go to the action types and add our actions in here. So I just added some actions which just say get assignment list start, get assignment list fail, and success. And using these, we can then import them into the assignments and reference them here. So we'll say this is get assignment list start and get assignment list success and get assignment list fail. And now we just need to add the assignment, or assignments rather, into the get assignment list success action. So we pass those assignments in there. And now we need to create our function to actually get those assignments. And so we'll just call this the get assignments, which we'll have to take in a token to authenticate the user. And we'll just return a dispatch. And the first dispatch is going to be the get assignment list start, which we defined up top there. And then we'll set the Axios default.headers to have the content type as application JSON, and then we set authorization to be token, and then the token that's being passed into the function. And then we can say axios.get, and this is going to be HTTP 127.0.0.1 to our local host, and then to port 8000 to the assignments. And then we'll just say .then with the response that we get from the server. We'll say that the assignments equal to response.data, and then we will dispatch the get assignment list success and pass in those assignments. And otherwise we'll catch any errors and just say dispatch the get assignment list fail. And that's our method action. So we basically just need to handle this in the reducer and then add that reducer to the root reducer. So let's go to reducers and we'll add assignments.js. And this is actually going to be similar to the auth. So we'll just copy and paste everything in there, except now we don't have any of that stuff. So we have assignments, which we'll set as an empty list to get started. And if we go back to the actions, let's just copy this name. So this first one will be get assignment list start, and then we'll copy these two as well. So we'll copy that and that, paste that there. And when we get the list success, all we're getting are the assignments. So this will be assignments is action.assignments, and everything else is actually good. We can delete the auth logout, and we can delete that case there as well. So now the action type is going to be get list start, which will be get assignment list start, and then the same thing for success and fail. So just like that, and that actually should do it for the reducer. So let's go into our index.js file, and here we'll copy this and just say this is the assignment reducer, which comes from assignments, and we'll say that assignments is the assignment reducer. So now we can access the assignments via the assignments reducer, and we can close that now and close the assignments and action types. And now we just need to connect our assignment list to the store, which comes from React Redux. So this is connect. We'll come down to the bottom here and say connect the assignment list, and let's go and grab those constants like this so we don't have to repeat ourselves. And we've got map state to props and map dispatch, which we'll pass in here. And we'll change those methods, of course. So we don't need the user ID, but we are going to need the token so we can authenticate. So this is going to be state.auth.token. And then we're going to need the get assignments, which will come from actions.getAssignments. So let's go and say import star as actions from, and then go all the way back to the store to actions assignments. And we'll say actions.getAssignments. And this is going to take in a token, which we pass in there. And we can get rid of the data list there now. And instead, what I'm actually going to do is pass in the assignments here, which will come from state.assignments.assignments. And then this is what the data will be as the data source. So this will be this.props.assignments. And if we come back, now you just have no data. And I'm going to get rid of the header and footer. And there we go. So that's what it looks like so far. And we can say that this is the assignment list. And we can actually pass in the loading, which will be state.assignments.loading. And what I'm going to do is use the skeleton from AntD, which is all the way down here to feedback. So if we click on skeleton, basically it just gives you like a loading screen that isn't just a spinner. It's like as if the data is there, it's just not showing you it. So this is simply just importing skeleton from AntD. So simple enough, just import it there. And we can import our higher order component. So we'll say import HOC from HOC. And here inside the return statement, we're going to say if this.props.loading, then we're going to return the skeleton and say active. And then otherwise, we will return the div with the data source. And the reason why it's not correct right now is because we can't return a dynamic output. We have to wrap this within something. So we are going to return it inside an HOC so that we don't create a div unnecessarily. And there we go. Now if we come back, obviously it's still going to say no data, but it's working. We just now need to say when we have the token, send a request to get the data. And so we'll add a method here. This one will be the component didMount. And basically we'll just say if this.props.token is not undefined and it's also not null, then we are going to call this.props.getAssignments and pass in this.props.token. And with the same kind of concept, we'll do that in the component will receive props. This isn't the best method to use right now because it is going to be removed, but we're not too worried about that for now. So basically we're just going to say if the new props.token is not equal to the current token, then we will say the same thing as what we did here. And instead of passing this.props.token, this is the new props.token. And we can actually change that as well so that it's new props.token is not undefined and new props.token is not null. Now if we come back, we get new props is undefined, so let's add it there. We're not getting any data come through, so let's log in now. So let's actually go and log in, and I'll inspect this here. So we'll log in with Matt, and let's see, we get an error here. It says objects are not valid, which is basically happening inside the assignment list. It says line 34, and that's because we're rendering out just the item. So basically it is rendering out an object. And to think ahead, what we also will need to do is create a detail view for the assignment. So what I'm going to do is create a method here that will return each list item but with a nav link inside it. So this will just be render item, and it will take an item, and we'll just say return this here, but we'll import the nav link. So we'll say import from React router DOM, which is nav link, and we will put that inside like that. And this is the link component. So there you've got the link, and we're just going to wrap the link around our list item, and here we'll specify the to property. to just be like, for example, assignments 1 just for now. And here, instead of being item, this will be item.title, because remember, each assignment has a title and a teacher. So in our case, we want to display it using the title. And if we come back, now we just need to use the render item method by calling this.render item of item. And there we go. You can see that the loading skeleton displayed for a little bit, and now we have the assignment list, where we also have this test assignment, which is the first assignment here. Cool, so the assignment list is working, and now we can get the assignment detail working. So like if I click on assignment 1, then you see it takes us to this link here. So we basically want to add a root to handle that. So let's go back here to roots, and we're going to just copy that one and say this is the assignment detail, which we'll create in a second. And basically we're just going to copy this here and say when you go to assignments and then an ID, then it's going to take you to the assignment detail. And now we can come back into the containers and we'll add assignment detail.js. And basically what we want to do in here is just create a card. So if we check out the cards here from ant_d, which are here under the data display, and we can just come down a little bit and see this one here, which has an inner card. That's quite nice. So I'm going to copy that code, and we'll say import React from React, paste that there. And so we have a card which has some inner card stuff, and we can actually get rid of the second one, and I think we'll also get rid of the group title, so that we basically have a card and an inner card. And then we'll just say class assignment detail extends the React component, and we'll say render, which will return all of this stuff here. And then we can say export the default to be assignment detail. And if we come back in here, now you can see you get this card with an inner card displaying. And basically what we can do is change the card title to be the title of the assignment. And then for each question, we could add a card here, or we could be a little bit more fancy and use some other components from ant_d to create this effect of showing one question, and then when you answer that question, you can go to the next one, and etc. So that's what we're going to do. So we're not going to list through all of them and replicate the card title here. So let's just come back in here, and we can get rid of the extra there as well. And so we basically want to go back to the store, and inside our assignments actions and reducers, we need to handle getting an assignment detail. So what I'm actually just going to do is copy all of this here, and we're going to now handle the methods to get the assignment detail. So let's go up here, and this one will be get assignment detail start. This will get assignment detail success and detail fail, and then this will be get assignments detail. And in this case, we want to pass in the token and the ID of the assignment that we want to get. Then we will dispatch the get assignment detail start and get assignment detail success and get assignment detail fail. And in this case, the assignment is what we will get from the response data. And we want to change the get request to be assignments and then pass in the ID. And remember to put a slash at the end of that. Then the assignment we can pass into the get assignment detail success dispatch and change that as well to be an assignment that's passed in there. And we also need to update our action types. So you can just do something like this, get assignment detail start, fail, and success. Same kind of concept as before. And then we just need to change this here for these methods. So this will be get assignment detail start, get assignment detail success, and get assignment detail fail. And everything is pretty much good to go. So we can actually close that, or in fact, we can actually copy those methods for the reducer, and we actually don't need these to be exported, same as the list ones. So we'll just grab these three here, and then we can come into the store reducers assignment, and we'll come down to the bottom, and right above the reducer we'll just paste these here, and instead we need to basically do exactly what these ones are doing, where they're passed in the state. So this will be like that, and for start we'll set it to this, and we can actually come up top here and set the current assignment to be an object, which will store the current assignment's properties in there. And then for getting the detail success, then we will pass this all like that, and this will be assignment, and we'll set the current assignment to be the assignment that's being passed in. And then for the fail, this will update in the same way. And now we just need to add 3 more cases in here to handle those. So we've got get assignment detail start, which will get assignment detail start, get assignment detail success and failure, just like that. And it's just check, is the server happy? And it is. So now what we need to do is basically just call these methods here inside the assignment detail. So we're going to basically do the same thing here. We're going to need the connect method, and we're going to wrap it around the assignment detail. And I'll actually just go to the bottom and copy all of this here, and then just rename this to be assignment detail. And we'll import just the function we need from the store. So this comes from store actions assignments, and this is the get assignment detail, and that's what we'll pass in there as well. And we know that it takes in a token and an ID, so we pass the token and the ID in there. And instead of having assignments, we'll have the current assignment, which is from state.assignments, and just fix this dispatch there. And what we want to do now is the same thing as what we did with component did mount and component will receive props. So we'll copy that, paste that there, except this will be get assignment detail, and we'll put that one there as well. And we need to pass in the parameter coming from our URL. So that would be this.props.match.params.id, and we can actually just copy that whole line, and there we go. So if we come back, it seems like everything's good. We'll just come here, and instead of the title being card title, we'll output this dynamically and say that this is the title, which will come here and say constant title equals to this.props.current assignment. And if we come back, we're getting an unauthorized error, and that might be because of our settings. So if we go to home settings base.py and go all the way down here, and we can actually change this to be is authenticated, and I'll remove the session and basic authentication classes. And let's come back and refresh this, and let's close that and come back here to the detail view. And that's because we're not passing in new props.token, so let's get rid of that and try this again. And there we go, we see the test assignment title coming through there. And so now let's go back to ant-d, and we're going to take a look at the step component. Now the step you can find here under the navigation, and this is basically what it looks like. It's just like navigating through some kind of step-by-step task. And the way that we want to display this is kind of similar to this one. So we're just going to copy that code, and let's actually go into containers, and we'll create another one which will be called questions.js. And this is going to basically render out a step-by-step display of our questions. So let's just paste that all there, and we can come to the top, and we'll rename this app to be called questions, and go to the bottom and say export default questions. And we're going to need React, so we'll say import React from React, and I'm going to get rid of the constructor and just say this state is like that. And we can actually just take these questions and bring this into the assignment detail. So let's go over here, and we'll say import questions from questions, and we'll take that and we will display that inside the inner content like that. And let's take a look, and this is what it looks like. Now it's not displaying this thing here because we didn't copy the CSS, which looks like that. But I don't think we actually want to either. But instead, what I'll do is if we come back here and go back into questions, we'll just go up to the top here, and this div will say that the style has a height of 100%. But what we'll do is we'll make sure that this content actually does have some padding on it, and it'll look better once there actually are questions inside there. And we don't want to display these large balls here like first, second, third, etc. We're just going to have little dots instead. So we can do that if we actually just close that there. Then you can see it looks like this. And the way that you do that is just by putting in progress dot like that and bring it into the steps. And if we save that, now it looks like that. And that looks a little bit better. And I think we can actually get rid of the inner card title as well. We can get rid of the whole inner card and just display these steps. So let's go back to assignment detail, and I'm just going to cut out that card and place it like that. And we can actually import the skeleton as well from AntD. So bring the skeleton in, and we have the loading as well. So we'll also bring in our higher order component like we did here in the assignment list, and we'll return the higher order component, and inside it we'll do the same kind of thing and say if this.props.loading, then we'll return the skeleton and say active, and otherwise we will return the card like that. Cool. And save, and actually I'm realizing that we will need the inner card so that we can display the question number. So we'll just create that card again and just bring the questions in there. We'll say type equals to inner, and what I'll do is say title equals to, and let's just take a look again. Cool. So we haven't given it a title. We could specify the title here. But what we want to do now is we want to basically grab the questions off of the assignment. So when we grabbed it here from the server, we want these questions to be passed into the assignment detail. And I think what we'll do is we'll pass them in as props into the question component here. And then inside these questions here, we'll then loop through them and display however many questions there are. So basically the number of dots here will depend on the number of questions. That's basically what we're aiming for. So let's go back in here, and what we'll do is we'll say questions, and inside there we'll say that the questions equal to the current assignment, which we've got up here, and we can actually just say constant equals to this.props, and then say title equals to current assignment, and then like that we can pass that into here and say current assignment dot questions, and we actually can just put it like that. And what we can actually do is return a card by mapping through the questions. We can return a card for each question and pass basically a list of components into the questions, and that way when it comes through in the questions here, the component that will render will not just be this over here, the start and the steps. It'll actually be a component. And so let's just see how this will be done. We'll say .map, and we'll say for each question we're going to return a card, and we can actually just cut that out and say that there. When we do that, we're going to need to specify the key, which will be the question ID, and the title of the question is going to be the question.order, and we can actually then put the question next to it. So what we'll do is we'll output it in strings and just reference it with substitution. So question order dot, and then question.question, and that looks a little bit better. And now inside the questions component, we need to handle that. So let's first get rid of the steps. We don't need that. And the logic here of the current is correct. We'll keep that. We'll keep next and previous and render. But then here we'll say that the constant questions equal to this.props, because we're going to receive it as props. So this will be questions. And these questions here will loop through inside the steps. So now instead of using the steps that was defined up top there, we're now going to use the questions and say dot map for each question, and we can also use the index to use it as a key. So for each question, we're going to create a step where the key is going to be equal to the index, so basically the index of the element in the list, and we don't need a title either. We're basically just creating a step. We can remove these class names because we don't actually have the CSS for that. And this div here is rendering out what used to be steps of the current step, but now we want to change steps to be questions, so that it will render out the question according to the index of that question within the list of questions we've passed down. So we can remove .content as well. And if we take a look at this, we've got steps is undefined in line 33, and we can change that to be questions.length and questions.length. And let's take a look now. And we're getting a cannot read property map of undefined. And the reason for this is because of our serializer. So let's jump back into the backend and go all the way to API and then to serializers. Now, the issue is that we have a nested component. Questions are referenced by a foreign key in the question model, and so that's why we're not seeing it come through. And so we're going to actually do the same kind of thing as what we did in the users. If we go back to the user serializer, we used a serializer method field where we defined the method to actually get this data. Well, we're going to do the same thing here for our questions. So let's just close that. And we'll say that the questions equals to serializers.serializer method field. And then here we just add a method and say define get questions and say it takes self and object. Now, in order to get the questions, we need to actually use another serializer, and that serializer will be the question model serializer. And so let's just go here and say class question serializer. And nothing funny is going to happen here. We'll just say serializers.model serializer. We'll set the class meta to have a model of question, which we'll import from models. And then we'll just say that fields equal to all, like the previous one. And this question serializer is going to be used to serialize the question objects. And so we can say that the questions equal to question serializer, where we're passing in the object. Remember, this object is an assignment. So we pass in the assignment, but we want to access the questions off of that assignment. And we can do that because if we took a look at the models again, the assignment doesn't have a questions field on it. But if you go back to the question model, we specified the question to have an assignment that was a foreign key of the assignment model. And basically what we need to do to make this work really simply is just by adding a related name. So we'll just add related name, and this is going to be questions. Now when we do that, this allows us to come into the serializer and say get object.questions.all. Even though we don't have the field on the assignment, the fact that we have the foreign key with a related name allows us to make that kind of query. And we actually need to make a migration for that. So we'll say make migrations, and then we can say migrate, and then we can run the server again, and we can close the models. And now using the question serializer, we're passing in the object's questions by using the related name. And we want to set many equal to true. And that's basically saying almost like there are going to be many questions that we need to pass because this is a nested serializer. And then we'll just say .data to get the data from the serializer, and then just say return the questions. And so now if we take a look at this and refresh it, we're still getting undefined. So let's go into the assignments here, and we'll just say console.log the assignment to see what's going on. And to basically get around this with a dirty trick, what we can do is go into our assignment detail, and here right above the higher order component, we'll just say object.keys of the current assignment and say .length, and if it is greater than 0, then we will do all of this here. So let's just cut all of that and bring it there. Otherwise, just return null. And that means that we also need to wrap all of that inside a higher order component as well. So we'll just cut that out, bring that there. And now we're basically saying if the current assignment we have from the props has more than one key inside it, then return the stuff, otherwise return null. So now we can see at least that's being displayed, and it allows us to actually let the component will receive props take place. And then you can see here we're getting a response in the assignments which has an ID of 1, and we're getting a questions array, and you see each question has an ID. It has the question field, the order, the answer, etc. And we also get the teacher, but it's only returning 1, so that doesn't help too much. And for the choices, we also only get 1 and 2. So we basically, what we want to do is convert any time that we see something that shouldn't be returned as an integer or returned by its ID, we want to view it as a string. We want to see what does its defined string method return. Because in that case, what it's going to do is for the choices, it's going to return the actual text, the title of each choice instead. And the user will be returned by their username and not by their ID. And we can nail that pretty quickly. If we just go back to our serializer, we can use a string serializer. So we can just say class string serializer and say this inherits from serializers.string related field. And this requires one method, which is the to internal value, and it takes in self and a value, and then we just say return value. Then what you can do is you can use the string serializer to convert fields in your other serializers into a string. So for example, on the question serializer, we have these choices. That's a field on the question model. So we can say choices equal to string serializer, where many equals true, because there are many choices for each question. And then we can return that here inside the fields. And if you wanted to return the teacher as well, let's say you wanted to return the teacher's name and put it in the top right hand corner, then you could do the same thing and say teacher equals to string serializer where many equals false. But we don't have that on the question, so we'll just leave it as it is, and we'll change the fields to be ID, choices, question, and order. And then we can come down to the assignment serializer here, and we'll say that the teacher is here because that's where it is. And again, we'll use the string serializer and pass in many equals to false. And cool, we'll just leave this as all because we pretty much are returning all the fields. So now if we come back here and refresh this, now you can see the ID, you can see the questions, and each question has two choices. You can see cool and not cool. You can see the question with its title. You can see the teacher by its username of admin, and that's really convenient. So now what we want to do is add the choices for each question inside the question. So what we'll do is we'll go back into our source folder, and here we're going to create a new folder inside there, which is going to be called the components folder, and this is going to hold the choices, and make sure this is choices.js, because we're basically just going to pass the state down into it. We're not going to make this a container. And so we'll start by importing React from React, and how we want to do this is to use the radio, and this is part of forms. So if you go up here, you can see this vertical drop down of radio options. We'll just copy that, and we'll change this to be class called choices, and then say export default choices, and we can get rid of the last radio item, and we'll remove the radio style to be outside of the class. And let's take this choices component and we'll remove the input there, and we're going to take this component into the assignment detail, and we'll say import choices from components choices, and what we want to do is render the choices inside the card, right? That makes sense. So we're passing the cards as components into the question, but each component card but each card that we pass in has answers inside it. So if we go all the way down here to the card, we basically want to pass these choices inside it. So like that, we'll say choices, and we'll just do it like that for now, and let's see what this looks like. And now you can see you get like option A, B, C for the questions. And what we can also do is come up top here and just define some styling, which we'll just say is the card style. And all we're doing is just making the margin top of 20 pixels and the margin of bottom of 20 pixels as well. You can come and bring that card style down inside here. So we'll say style equals to card style. And let's check this out, and now it's a little bit more spaced out and looks a bit better, and you can select those different options as well. And let's go and actually create another question, and we'll add an answer and say, let's say it's true. And if we refresh this, we've got true there. We'll say true is the answer, and we'll add another choice which is false. We'll say this is question 2. The assignment is test assignment, the order is 2. And if we come back here and refresh this, now you can see there's 2 dots. And if you go from next to the next one, you're going from question 2 to question 1 and back. And that's pretty cool. So now all we need to do is just pass in the options, or rather the choices of each question as the actual choices to this radio group here. And so we already have the choices component that we're passing into the card. So inside there we can add some props and say this is equal to the question's choices, right? Because we're getting the choices off of each question. And that way, when we go back into choices here, we can just come down here, and instead of rendering out these components over and over, we will output them by mapping through the choices that came through as props. So we'll say this dot props dot choices dot map, and we'll just say for each choice and pass an index, we will return a radio item like that, and we'll say that the value equals to C, where C is the choice that came through, and the text that goes inside there is the actual value of C as well. And we'll say that the key is equal to the index that was used to loop through in the map. So now if we come back, and so we're getting a warning here which is saying that we're getting a unique key property error, and we actually want to remove this value statement there that's coming from the state. So what we'll do is remove the state there, and what I'm going to do is take the onChange and bring this back into the assignment detail. We'll put it over here, and instead of the value being now coming from the state, well, how we're going to manage this is pass the question ID into the choices. And so that way we can basically store inside the assignment detail the answer to each question inside a dictionary or an object, where each key is the question ID, and then the value of that question ID is the answer that the user's chosen. And that's very easy to update in the state. So basically what we're doing is at the top here, we're just going to say that the state equals to this object that has, let's call it user answers, which is an object. And then in the onChange, we're not only going to take in an event, but we're going to take in the question ID that was changed. And so we'll grab the user's answers via the state and say this equals to this dot state. And then we'll say user's answers of that question ID. So we're setting the key in the dictionary equal to the event target value. And then we can just say this dot set state of user's answers. And now we just need to pass the onChange inside our choices. So what we'll do is we'll say change equals to this dot onChange, and then we can handle the change property here and say when onChange takes place, then we'll say this takes in an event and a question ID, and say it's an anonymous function that calls this dot props dot change, where we pass in the event, and then we need to pass in the question ID, which we'll grab by passing down as well. So we'll come into assignment detail, and we'll say that the question ID equals to q.id, and then that question ID here we can access here in the render. So we'll say constant question ID equals to this.props, and then pass in that inside our props.change. And what we can also do is pass in the user's answers. So right here above the return statement, we'll say that the constant user's answers equal to this.state, and we'll just wrap this to destructure it, and we'll pass that down into the choices as well, where it equals to user's answers. And in fact, the question ID should actually be referenced with the order, because otherwise we'll get the actual ID of the question, which could be like 12, 13, 14, etc., where you only have 2 questions and it's going to say question 1 is number 13. So that doesn't make sense. It's actually meant to be the order, like how we were displaying it in the title. And so with the user's answers being passed down into the choices, we can now say that the value that's currently selected in the radio group is equal to the value that's in the state. So basically what we'll do is say if user's answers, which we can actually grab up top here, we'll say constant user's answers equals to this.props, and say if the user's answers are not equal to null, and basically just check if the question ID that's coming from the user's answers is not undefined and it's also not null. So if that's true, then we will say that the answer is the value of the question ID inside the user's answers, and otherwise it is null. So basically that's what it looks like. And so if we take a look here, we'll need to log in, and if we go to test assignment, now you have the first question there, and you've got its answers showing. You've got cool and not cool, and if you go to next, you've got true and false. And now if we select cool and go click next and go back, you can see that that state was preserved, meaning the answer that we selected is still there. And if you go forward, you can click false or whatever, go back and forth, and there we go. So it's preserving the state in the questions, and basically what this means is that all we need to do is just add our questions in the backend. However many questions you add, it doesn't matter, because those questions will be looped through to give you the answers to those questions inside each card component, and each card component is being passed in inside each question. So I think we can stop this video here, as we've covered quite a lot, and what we'll do in the next one is actually handle creating those assignments and take it from there. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to leave a comment down below and let us know what you thought, and otherwise thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.